All right, guys. Thank you everybody for tuning in. This is the Law Nations and also the Derek. We have the Dallas prospects here in the house, the Outlaw Stars. Uh, this is another game recap for everybody. Salute to everybody that's in the chat box too as well. Derek, what's going on, man? Talk to me.
Not a whole lot, man. Still trying to process everything that happened with that Cowboy game.
Is this I mean, is this one of those things where I'm going to continuously talk about Jeff Heath because the moment I doubt him, he shows up and shows out. We needed that last play, and I'm just going to jump to it. He's just being everywhere. He just being accountable and being out there for the plays and making plays on the ball and things like that. And I'm lost for words.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously comes up with the play of the game, and I mean, really, that the last probably 6 minutes of that game were the wildest I can remember. Everything from the Jason Witten lunging on third down. There were people who were making it would have been a reach, but an argument saying his knee's not down, his knee's on the defender's hand. So they were saying the spot there was a little suspect. But then you have Dak going for it on fourth down, everything with the index card and all that. So it was just an amazing culmination of bizarre events.
The index gate, right?
Yep.
But if you think about it, if the index card was not able to fit all the way down to the ground, then undoubtedly, the ball was touching the meter. I was just looking at it from this aspect too as well. It was just a horrible spot. I think that even if the Cowboys, even if the guy said, they didn't get the first down, I think Jason Garrett would have challenged that call.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he would have had a very good case for that because I think it was a bad spot. It's hard to tell when you're looking at like 1,500 pounds of linemen. But at the same time, I think to me, it looked like Dak made a second effort where he reached the ball out in front of him. And I don't think they gave him a spot accounting for that.
Yeah, and speaking of that, earlier on that game, on that drive, I think, not on that drive, I think the Raiders had false started, what have you, and I think that the officials, the refs, didn't see that. So, I mean, it's just so many things that you can point out at the game. Football is a game of inches, but for the officials to play such a crucial spot in this modern day football, it's just everything. So, I mean, we got away with that. So, regardless of the scenario, it was pretty much fairly called game from what I looked at it. I do know that a lot of Raiders people were saying like, oh man, it was Jerry Jones reached out his credit card and he was paying these guys. If that was the case in the scenario, that 55 or 57 yard PI call would never been called.
Yeah, I don't think it was a poorly officiated game. I mean, the thing is, easily could have and should have probably ended earlier on. We saw Anthony Brown blow the chance at a pick. That would have sealed the game with a minute left. And then we had Wilson miss a pick. Brown might have had 2 attempts at a pick. We had cases earlier on. Jeff Heath, he made the play of the game, but he also made a bad whiff ball after Cheeto forced a fumble off of Crabtree, one of the few times someone got to Crabtree today, I felt like. And, we had our opportunities. It's a weird thing where we forced ourselves into position to make plays, but somehow weren't making plays. And then at the end, you finally do make the play.
Right. When it really needed to be, when it really needed to happen. I was looking at that too as well. Looking at the tempo of the game and how the game was called. Yeah, we had a lot of balls to bounce not our way, and then towards the end it bounced right our way. So, I mean, I'm looking at it collectively. I think that this team is playing the way that we need to play, and I think that Jeff Heath is doing what he needs to do, and also Cheetah Bay Awuzie and Jordan Lewis. These guys, these young cornerbacks, are everything you can close your eyes and wish to the high heavens and imagine. They are flying out to the ball, driving down on the ball. In my little quick review of the Raiders wide receivers, I mentioned the fact that their receivers are not that great on holding on to the ball. And we saw that time in and time out throughout this game. where Cheeto Bay Awuzie was able to punch that ball out. It's just the fact that the ball didn't bounce to Jeff Heath's way that first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Patterson for the Raiders had a big return at one point. I think it was when he got to the 50 in the fourth quarter. And I think it was actually Anthony Brown who gave a big hit, knocked it free from him, but it kind of, squirted out of bounds before a Cowboy could dive on it. It's one of those things where you just have misses like that. It's one of those games where they're fortunate to pull off the win, even though it felt like they should have been up a lot more.
Yes, indeed. It should have been a lot more. And just going over the game in its whole capacity, like what Alfred Morris was able to do out there on the field, opposed to what Rod Smith was going to be was able to do. And now we got Ezekiel Elliott coming back into the fold next week. This game is going to have to be everything. I do know for sure that Seattle was just humiliated twice in 2 weeks in a row. So regardless of the scenario, they're going to come to play next week. So we're going to have to be ready. I'm talking about capital READY, ready.
Yeah, Seahawks are coming off a 2-game skid, and at Jacksonville, I don't think that they so much got embarrassed. I just think that was them running into a team that made a few more plays. This week against the Rams, they absolutely got humiliated. That was like 34-0 at half at Seattle.
Yes, indeed. My goodness. Yes, indeed, my goodness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not to just fast forward all the way, but looking back, I see a lot of people who are talking. Do you know any word on Tyron Smith? Just not getting off of work, so I really haven't got a chance to read anything.
Sure. I saw that he was on, or that he had an MRI today. I haven't actually seen the results, which seems kind of strange because that's not something that takes more than a day. And it actually has me a little concerned. I do know it's at least a sprained knee, which means there's some degree of tear, but I don't know exactly how far that coordinates. You know what I mean? I don't know if we're looking at him missing some time. Some knee sprains might only take a few days. It just depends on the degree.
Yeah, I guess he's going to have to get in the cold tub, and we're just going to have to put some wrap on there and see if he's going to be able, because every game from here on out is a playoff game. It's an elimination game, so I was screaming to the high heavens. I'm saying, like, why is this kid not back out there? And because he was walking around. Normally, in those type of scenarios, you are escorted off the field when you have some type of major injury. So I was wondering, is the coaching staff being relaxed, or are they not panicking enough? But I guess they know more than us, or know more than me.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where they were probably just being cautious, because at the time that he came out, Dallas was still in fairly good control. Understood that, if it's a sprain, then having him trying to push on through it, you're guaranteed probably to lose him for the year. Whereas if it's a light sprain and you say, okay, we need to find a way to survive this game. If we can do that, then we'll be back. Maybe he misses only one game if he misses it all. And then we can be back to full strength, hopefully with the season still, ahead of us.
So hopefully, that can happen. Hey, what are your thoughts on, I think I shared with you earlier this morning, via text, Pro Football Focus, and pretty much giving Anthony Brown the game ball. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like there were better choices. I mean, he dropped 2 picks. He did force a fumble, but he didn't recover it. And, that's not his fault. That's just where the ball went. I don't know. I mean, obviously he would be higher in the running than like Cheeto, just because Cheeto gave up a couple touchdown catches. Jordan Lewis had a 50-yard pass interference that nearly sank us. So maybe if you would tell me it has to be a cornerback and not even like a safety like Heath, then maybe. But I would have taken Chris Jones even before I took Anthony Brown.
The Punisher, right?
Yeah, man.
Man, he's one of those guys. You sent out a text to me, and you were saying that pretty much. I think you were saying that one of the guys from the Cowboys, what was this guy name? Um, said that
You're talking about David Hellman?
David Hellman. Yeah, David Hellman said it, that pretty much the decision for the go for it was all Chris Jones' decision. And that takes a lot of cojones for somebody to go out there and just make those type of decisions when we're so far back in our side of the field and all that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my understanding of it is that it was something that special teams coach Rich Versace pretty much looks at it and basically talked with Garrett, and it's something where they've told Chris Jones, if you see this look, you have a green light to run. So Chris Jones ultimately had to make the call. Some credit deserved, I think, to Garrett to trust in his coordinator, his special teams coach, and of course his punter. And we've seen that Chris Jones is an athlete. I mean, it got overturned in Atlanta, but we had a fake punt there too, where he throws like a 20-yard strike to Butler because Butler pushed off to get the room for the catch. So he's an athlete. I mean, he's a legitimate athlete.
So he can punt the ball, he can hit. We saw that last year. He can lay the wood too as well. Hey man, this guy is just like a decathlon. He can just do whatever you want to call it out. I think that's what you call it, when he can just do multiple things out there. And he just pure, like you said, a pure athletic guy, smart student of the game. I might have to do a film breakdown on him, the Punisher.
Oh yeah, and he's a guy who's been much maligned. He came into the year with high hopes for him. I know you and me were very high on him, and he struggled early on. I mean, there were times in that Atlanta game where, the Rams game where it was almost brutal watching him in coverage because he was just taking poor angles and whiffing on tackles. But the last few weeks, he's actually been a little bit of a shining spot for the defense.
Yeah, so I managed to see a few things too as we talking about special teams. I want to touch on Switzer a little bit, but I want to touch on Dan Bailey. He seems like he got hit in the head. I don't know whether or not he's in concussion protocol or anything of that nature. Do you have you heard anything on him, or is it just like he just got hit in the head and everything is okay and smooth?
Yeah, right. I didn't hear anything new today. I do know that he had to clear protocol on the bench before he was allowed back into the game for that game-winning field goal.
Okay. So he's okay. What about Anthony Hitchens? Is he okay? Is he cool? Everything going on with him? Because I knew that he was carted off or had to get taken off the field. Is he okay? Hello? I think we lost audio on you, Darreck. You guys let me know in the chat box whether or not Anthony Hitchens is okay. But moving forward, looking at the next opponent, well, no, I don't want to move too fast. We can talk about Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant is from Ninja. I can't say your last name on here. Gotta keep it PG-13, but it is a funny last name, Ninja. The thing is, I don't think Dez is done, but he is knocking at the door at this point. If the continuity with Dak Prescott doesn't come along, we all know that a wide receiver at times is always ticking, and younger, fresher eyes are always a high commodity. I think this draft coming around the corner, we may have to take a look at a wide receiver. Anybody that can catch the ball with their hands. We did see a lot of drops out there on the field. One or two by Dez, and we saw a drop by number 11 too as well. And we saw also a drop by 83. Those are things that we just always have reservations on. Darreck, you back? I was talking about the Dez and the whole wide receiver situation. At this point, we are just an average wide receiver team. And one can argue and say, well, this wide receiving core is probably be kind of sort of below average.
Yeah, I think as a whole, the receiving core has underperformed for us this year. It's kind of amazing to me how I feel like the standard for a good Dez game has really gone down in recent years. His Washington game, For instance, he had something like 5 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown, and people are saying, "Oh, Dez is back," or "Classic Dez game," vintage. And it's like, well, that's just back in the day. We would have called that an okay Dez game, like a minimum you expect. And it's just something where I think we've lowered the bar because we don't see as many of those explosive big plays from him anymore. And yeah, there is a certain synergy of that goes to the quarterback. He doesn't have the same rapport with Dak that he had with Romo. But I also feel like it's a situation where the Cowboys coaching staff doesn't really run plays or routes that work to his strength.
So it's like a conundrum. Where's what comes first, the chicken or the egg type of situation? Because one can argue and say, well, the receiver makes the quarterback or the quarterback makes the receiver, a la Odell Beckham makes what's this guy Eli, or Eli makes, or is it really Eli making Odell Beckham? So we can argue the statistics on that and say, well, Eli is a 2-time championship Super Bowl winner quarterback, and then you can say, well, without Odell Beckham, Eli looks pedestrian out there, So what comes first, the chicken or the egg in this situation? Will Dak Prescott make Dez Bryant better, or will Dez Bryant make Dak Prescott look a lot better, Or would you flip and put Odell Beckham on the Cowboys roster, and would Dak Prescott looks like he can walk on water, or vice versa? You know what I mean?
I think in that scenario, Odell would do a lot more for Dallas than Dez would, as far as pairing with Dak. I think Odell has a wider route tree that he can run. I also think he has more separation ability than what we see with Dez at this stage. As for whether or not Dak should feed off Dez or Dez feeding off Dak, I think Dez being the veteran and the guy with really the history of being the playmaker here, it should be something where Dak is helped by Dez. We saw that with T.O. and Romo when Romo first took over. In later years, Romo didn't lean on T.O. as hard, but for that first half season that he took over, he really went to T.O. a lot, and that was because he had an elite receiver. So that's what it should be. It's just not how it's playing out right now.
Right, and I do know that those are 2 different type of receivers. Cause I know somebody going to try to crucify me and say, "Well, you comparing Odell Beckham to Dak to Dez Bryant? Come on now." But that's not what I'm saying. And no, I'm not saying the Dallas Cowboys should go out and get a Odell Beckham type of receiver. Because to me personally, there hasn't been when the last time a superstar receiver won a Super Bowl. We don't know,
Nobody. I'd have to think on it.
Jerry Rice. I'm trying to think. Maybe somebody can say the Steelers that year when they had Holmes when he was playing out of his mind. Maybe,
Yeah, I wouldn't say he was superstar level just yet. I think that Super Bowl catch is what made him Super Bowl level.
Right. So we got to really think and really thinking when was the last time. So I would say, hey, maybe a wide receiver that's good and polished and can run great routes, and maybe something like that would just help us out down the line. And they showed a graphic play action play with the Ezekiel Elliott out of the backfield. Dak Prescott is like number 1, something like that, 140 something QBR, something crazy number, So
Dak play action with Zeke is deadly. Without Zeke, it hasn't been anywhere near as efficient. I think that just boils down to the defense having to respect the run. When you don't have the home run hitter there, and not only do you not have the home run hitter there, but you don't have a quarterback who is lethal from shots down the field range. So as a result, it's just a perfect conundrum where you can't be as effective because even play action, you're still having to look in that 10 to 12 yard range most of the time.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just one of those things. But at the same time, like Dad said, he's been double teamed more than any game he ever been playing on all this year. So hopefully now, when you have Ezekiel Elliott come back into the seams, teams are going to have to pick their poison. And now you have the aspect of Ezekiel Elliott, a healthy Ezekiel Elliott. I heard he's shredded up, and I heard he got a six-pack now that we all can see. Uh,
Yep.
so it's going to be one of those things where he's demanding, or he's saying that he's going to get at least 200 yards rushing. What are your thoughts on Ezekiel Elliott production coming up this week?
Well, I think he's going to be itching to be back. I don't doubt that, but I actually do have a little word of caution on that. For one, he is, no matter how good of shape he's in from his working out over this 6-week absence, it's still, he hasn't taken the beating of playing in a game. He hasn't had 300-pound linemen falling on top of him and all of that. So that's something you'll have to consider. But then you also have to consider that his feel for vision and everything within, hitting the hole, it's not as sharp right now as it would be had he not missed. So it could be something where, and we've seen him each of these at different stages of his career, we've seen him a little impatient and trying to force the issue rather than waiting for his blocks to develop. But then we've also seen him slow it down too much where he's overly patient. And that's when we weren't seeing him early at the year with the same burst. So it's a balancing act. And I think he's going to have to work to kind of find that happy medium.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, running backs always have to develop their stride, develop their rapport with the offensive line. And once we can get those things going, like you said, maybe we can see a decent game with him. But at the same time, the threat of Ezekiel Elliott out there, we do know that Alfred Morris is one-dimensional. He's not a power back. He's more of a zone read, see the gap, hit, and a burst through there type of guy. And then you have your combination guy of the number 45. He's more of a poor man's DeMarco Murray. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He has subtle speed. He can get into his off his release when he's running the ball out of power formation. So then he have the size. So yeah, I really think that if you pair that up and put Ezekiel Elliott out there, and then you have to change the pace of Rod out there, and maybe sprinkle in a little bit of more here after Morris, I'm going to say. Now you have a great combination piece, and I think that with Ezekiel Elliott coming out of there, he's going to just lift the morale of everybody out there on the team and have everybody playing to the next level. We should see, believe it or not, we should see a big game from number 83.
Really? That would be refreshing. Right as we were ready to say he had broken out against Kansas City, he's fallen off the map again.
Because what if we look at it from another perspective, right? What was the main reason why he broke out on the Kansas City game? He was single one-on-one coverage. He didn't have the guy over the top creaming down on him. A body catcher always let the ball hit into his pads. And the last few games that we saw with Terrence Williams, he allows the ball to hit into his pad levels, and that safety come over the top, or that physical cornerback hits him, and the ball springs up into an interception. And several times, I think this year it was a pick six from there. So hopefully, and I mean hopefully, he's going to have the one-on-one. And all of the attention is going to be on Ezekiel Elliott and Dez Bryant. And of course, these last few weeks, Jason Witten you had to worry about him up the seam route. So hopefully should be a breakout game also for another breakout game for number 83.
Yeah, that would be really refreshing to see, definitely. Before we get too far from the Oakland game itself, I wanted to kind of see if any kind of game notes or anything you might have had. Obviously, I feel like we kind of got a little ahead of several good talking points on that. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain some.
Well, it's one of those things where I love Switzer. I know we was going to talk about that on the special team. I just saw that he was trying to press it a little bit, and it kind of reminded me of the Rams game. We was already up 10-0, and he kind of like took the ball out of the end zone and ran it up the field, and we got no further than I think 10 or 15 yards from the line of, from our side of the field. Our side of the end zone. So I'm always with the aspect of hey, we up, we already winning. I do know we want to cut the opposition's throat off, if that's allowable to say on YouTube. But the thing is, when you're not moving the ball, I do know that certain sparks on special team can give life to the team. But I hope that Switzer can sometimes reel it in a little bit and not do it on kickoff returns, but just do it on punt returns. I don't mind him taking it up the field on that.
Yeah, that would be refreshing. He's definitely someone who's a bit trigger happy. He has some success, and then he just starts assuming like that's the default, like run it out every time.
Mm-hmm. Because the only reason why I say that is because they're giving you 25 yards now, opposed to a punt. Of course, you can take it up the field if you feel like, hey, this is what the team needs, as far as spunk, as far as being electric or what have you. Then yes, I do know there was a punt against the Rams, but it's still the same scenario. Understanding field judgment and understanding where you're at on the field. When is the right time to take it up to the house? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. One interesting, a couple interesting notes. I kind of game. It's only the second win for the Cowboys this year when turning the ball over even a single time. And the other case, if you recall, was actually at Washington, where Zeke fumbled on the first offensive snap of the game. Had to survive from there. But 2 wins this season when turning the ball over a single time. That's how thin of a margin it's been this year.
Yeah, turnovers are everything. And by us winning, some people yell out it was luck, but I'm saying a win is a win is a win. Normally you lose games like that, especially playing on the road and your first drive, you throw a interception, and then you have a ball batted in the air and he throws another interception, which luckily Cole Beasley, who could also quote unquote be the MVP for having this guy been touchdown on that play, and they're going for 3 opposed to 7, and that could have been the turning point of the game, So I mean, it's just one of those things. On the road is always playing. You got to play mistake free, and that's playoff atmosphere, believe it or not. So hopefully they can just learn from that.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of those things where, like I said, it's a razor thin margin for them. Last year, that wasn't so much of a problem because they were, as far as fewest turnovers in the league. This year, those numbers are up a little bit. I think Dak is at, I think he entered the game at 11 interceptions. So I think he's 13 now.
How many touchdowns do Dak Prescott have?
As far as passing, I think it's 21, but I think he has another 5 on the ground.
Okay, so 21.
So like 27 roughly.
So I'll live with those numbers with my second-year quarterback. But yeah, he's going to learn from that. Hopefully, he'll have one of those seesaw years where he'll go back to. Well, Ezekiel Elliott wasn't here, so and we do know that the Denver game was kind of crazy. But outside of that, if Dak Prescott can have his best buddy back out there on the field, hopefully he'll be more conscientious of the ball.
Yeah, that's a huge thing for them, and it's not a fix-all scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is last year, not just because Zeke hasn't been there. A little bit more into the receiving core. I mean, near as effective for us as he was last year. I thought Dez late last year was finally getting that chemistry with Dak, and I thought it was going to be lethal this year. In preseason, it looked like it would be. Been the case, and as a result, I think one of the things they really need to look at, whether it's their first pick or their second pick, need to take a hard look at a wide receiver
or a rangy safety. And we do know that Heath. This is my thing. This is why I say this. Look at the model, and I do know that Jacksonville Jaguars are playing like the worst schedule ever, basically. But if you look at the model, of these two teams, I'm going to say young teams, the Rams team and the quote unquote the Jacksonville Jaguars. They drafted defensive heavy, even when it was popular to grab a wide receiver or to grab an offensive guy. Now they drafted defensive heavy. Of course, we know that they always had great draft picks in the last few drafts, but they also went and looked at our page and said, you know what, we need a pound and ground type of guy, and that was Leonard Fournette. You know, they had Ivory and they had some other running back from Alabama that was just serviceable enough. But they said, who can be a guy that can be a game changer, who can take time and possession off the ball? And now we got these defensive guys that can fly out to the ball and make things happen. My thing is, the Cowboys, we are so close. And I think that, I hate to say this against Orlando Scandrick, if he's going to get Wally pipped or not, but Xavier Woods playing down in the slot, we see it already, the tenacity, the going down, crashing up the field and making tackles, playing with a relentless type of attitude and mindset out there is what Xavier Woods is doing. And you pair that and you mixing that in with the Cheetah Bay Awuzies of the world, and you mix that up with Jordan Lewis. And although he's having a quote-unquote sophomore slump, we're seeing some process or progressions with AB, Anthony Brown. He's still batting down the ball, driving through the oppositions. When they catches the ball with the hand, he's still swiping towards their hands, playing with good field leverage. We just never really seen that type of football play before with the Cowboys, especially, and I mean especially, I think it was the first or second drive when Awuzie went up against beast mode. You know, you can close your eyes and imagine if there was what's that Morris kid, Morris Claiborne, or if there was Brandon Carr. Them guys, I'm not to sully or denigrate them, but we know what type of product we know what would have happened. You know, they would have checked out. You know, so
yeah, no doubt.
So I'm all down for us getting an explosive wide receiver guy, but I'm leaning more towards a defensive guy. I know I was long-winded in my assessment with that, but I'm leaning towards a defensive guy with the first round pick next year.
Yeah, I mean that something that I think is worthy. I think you look at taking the highest quality receiver or a defensive end. Safety's high on the list as well. That, I mean, you can find a quality receiver further down, but if we're talking about finding basically that new triplet, so to speak, like that explosive game maker, then I think you might need if the right guy falls to you wherever you end up picking. Not to get too much off on a tangent as far as the draft and everything. Important thing is the Cowboys move to 8-6 and keep their season alive just in time for Zeke to come back. And they're not eliminated yet. There's still a path to making it that's not terribly crazy. So they just need to get back to work.
Yes, indeed. You got to get back to work. And those of y'all who wore your lucky socks, and I know I'm trying to grow out my beard so that we can win. And if you have your lucky T-shirt, we need to have that on too. Any voodoo magic that you have, please sprinkle that on the Atlanta. We need them to lose. We need the Lions to lose at least one game, right? So we need those two things to happen. I think looking back two weeks ago, we was like, we just being here at this moment was like unimaginable at that time, you know. So we're here at this moment. Now we just need for the other things to come into play. So if anybody have some voodoo magic, lucky socks, lucky T-shirts, crazy weird things that they do, we need to have that all in the mix too as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, hey, I had to touch on a few things too. I had a ton of comments saying that why was it, I'm going back to the Oakland Raiders game, why was it a touchback when the ball was kicked out of bounds, or when David Carr, was it Derek Carr, right?
Derek Carr. David Carr was his older brother, Houston Texans quarterback way back.
Right, I keep getting those two mixed up. Derek Carr, when he leaned towards the end zone. The thing is, people were saying that In basketball, when the ball is headed out of bounds, is a turnover on downs, or any other sports when the ball is headed out of bounds, a turnover on downs. People fail to realize football is unique. You got 4 downs to get 10 yards. So pretty much there's no such thing as a turnover on down unless the opposition is able to take the ball away from you on the field of play. So therefore, when he fumbled the ball through the end zone, meaning that there's no way that the official can advance the ball for the Raiders. If you think about it, where would he put the ball? You see, he can't put it at the 1 because he didn't advance to the 1. He lost control of the ball and went out of the red zone or money zone, end zone, however you want to call it. So therefore, it is a touchback, just like when you punt the ball. When it's third, well, you punt the ball on 4th down, right? And if it rolls out of the end zone, they have to touchback it. It's the same principle, you see. So you have 4 downs,
exactly.
You have 4 downs to get. A lot of people didn't understand the principle of football, and I said, okay, if you have that concept of if the ball go out of bounds, is the next team ball, meaning that, and that if that's the case, then if a quarterback passes the ball out of bounds, then it's turnover on down. You'll be forever watching the football game, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, a fumble is different in that case. Fumbling it outside of the end zone. If it had gone out at the 1-inch line, like not in the end zone, it's still Oakland's ball.
Right.
Because it went into the end zone and then out the side. It's a touchback. It's just like if you punted it out of the back of the end zone or whatever, it would be Dallas ball. It's a tough break for Oakland. That could have rolled dead, and maybe a Raider is still around to jump on it. Although I think a Cowboy was the next nearest player. That's just how it worked out.
And there's something else too as well in the handbook too as well, the rule book, is that anything that's after the 2-minute warning, a football that's fumbled forward, the opposition, or I mean not the opposition, but the team cannot advance where the football is landed. So say for instance, because it's with the Farmeruski or whatever, you know, they made rule changes because what would happen in the past, whereas they try to intentionally fumble the ball forward. You see what I'm saying? So that's why anything that's after the 2-minute, after the 2-minute warning, if a ball is advanced forward, fumbled forward, meaning that they would have to go back to the original spot before the ball was fumbled, or where the ball was, whatever the ball was hiked at on the line of scrimmage or what have you. So that's another thing. So even if he fumbled the ball forward and he was to gain possession, his team cannot. I guess another Raider cannot jump on the ball, so they would have to go back. It would have to still go back. And now you're talking about, I don't think they had. Did they have any timeouts?
Yeah, they had 1 timeout.
Okay, then they had to use a timeout. If not, it'd have been a mandatory 10-second runoff.
Yeah, his whole situation was baffling. If Dak or even Romo ever did that, they would have been killed for it.
Oh, yeah.
39 seconds. You've already run for the first down. You have 1st and goal from the 2. Lunges for the goal line. And he not only does he lunge for it with both hands if you're going to lunge for it, but
right
there awkwardly, and it hits his offhand to the gloved hand right as he gets hit. I mean, anything you could afford not to do. Even if he was tackled inbounds, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yes, indeed. So, hey, I'm glad we had to break that
something
down.
else interesting?
What's up?
Do you know what the biggest knock on Derek Carr coming out of college was?
Small hands.
Small hands.
So, yeah, and that relates to fumbling the ball. But
all the more reason he should have had both on it.
Both hands on the ball, yeah. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. I bet you in the future he won't do that again. He's a very cerebral guy. Hopefully he having a down year, you know, and we can see, whereas one can argue and say, well, he have his Zeke, you know, which was beast mode, right? He still had his Crabtree out there, who's I know he's a number 2 receiver, but he's allegedly supposed to have been a number 1 receiver, but he pretty much had a full deck against Dak Prescott, minimum deck of cards out there. Dak Prescott didn't have his Zeke, you know. and Dak Prescott didn't.
Right.
So we can go back and forth on who had who and who didn't have that. So I mean, all I heard all of last year was like this Derek Carr is just the next best thing since sliced bread. Hence, we heard news about Carson Wentz. This injury could be even worse than was expected. Now I know that we're not talking Eagles talk, but there could be some repercussions down the line with Carson Wentz. We might see a regression on him, on his skill set and his play out there next year too as well. Not wishing that on the kid, but that's just how it goes with football.
Yeah, I mean that's a chance with any young player. If you games where he didn't have Zeke or Tyron, which means only 2 games. If you exclude those games, his numbers are actually top 10. 2 games, it was so poor, unfortunately for him. Back down around a little below middle of the pack, I think, overall. But balancing act. I mean, it's one of those things where it's Tyron so that you can roll out there with Zeke next week. They still got a chance. They got to beat Seattle, and then after that, they go to Philadelphia. Good thing that Philadelphia has kept winning even since Wentz went down, because now as much to play for. The Vikings, I think, are a game behind them for the 1 seed. I think maybe that would be concerning if where Philadelphia has something to play for, then maybe you have some concern. But Dallas has a shot to win out. It's going to just come down to a couple things falling right. Like you said earlier, they'll lose a game. I think Atlanta has to lose a game. And what was the other one?
Well,
they've lost twice in a row.
I think Atlanta plays the Lions somewhere down the line, or Atlanta played the Green Bays. But the Green Bay already did us a favor. They lost 1. And what we wanted to do is, I heard someone came up with the analogy as that whereas they wanted Green Bay to win this game. Last week they wanted them to beat the Carolina Panthers. And have the Carolina Panthers, but the Carolina Panthers are hot right now. So to me, I think they're gonna have that. We don't think that the Saints are gonna lose out. I don't think that's possible. But and we don't see that the Carolina Panthers losing out. So I guess we're going to look at the second wild card slot. So it's a battle between Atlanta, the Lions, and us. We just need Atlanta to lose twice and Lions to lose 1. We in there like swimwear, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting season. It's funny to say that it's going to be a narrow margin on the heels of the Oakland game, which literally came down to a folded piece of paper.
Most certainly. So in closing, wrapping this up all together, what do you expect? What type of game are you expecting against the Seattle Seahawks?
Ooh, let's see. I think Seattle's going to come out pretty fiery, considering that they've lost 2 in a row and they just got embarrassed. I think that means they're going to be pretty focused, but they're also beat up, especially on that defense. They don't have, I think Earl Thomas is out. I think they're also missing Richard Sherman. So they're a bit thin on defense, but they're still the Seahawks. So I think more than likely we're probably looking at a situation where Dallas tries to establish the run game, tries to get Zeke going. And I think it probably is a slow start before maybe the offense can start finding its footing in the second half. I think it's going to be a 1-score game.
Oh, wow. So, man, that's going to be something there. I really think that we can have like a Arizona type of game, a Kansas City type of game, or Washington type of game. I have that type of mindset that we can have that type of temperament out there. It's just that we just got to see what Ezekiel Elliott's going to look like the first drive. That's all I want to see. If he's coming out guns a-blazing, then I know for sure we're on the right path. And if we can play a mistake-free game, this is a home game, right? This game is going to be in Dallas. That's correct?
Yeah, it's in Dallas.
So it's in Dallas. It was it's a turf type of game, so we should be flying with all colors. I think my guy Jay salute to you that's in the chat box. He said that the schedule for Atlanta, because that's who we really need to worry about. He said that they play, and I was just looking at it. He said that they play Tampa Bay, they played New Orleans, then they play the Carolina Panthers. So what we want to happen in this magical world, whereas we win this coming Sunday, they lose tonight. I think Atlanta plays tonight, right?
Tampa Bay, I think.
They lose tonight against Tampa Bay, and they lose against New Orleans. And then all of a sudden, as far as their last game of the season with Carolina, we just want Carolina to lose, I guess next week, and maybe lose the last game. It really doesn't count at that point for Atlanta, you know. So we'll see. We'll see how everything folds out at the end of the day. But I really got high hopes for this team. And as long as we continue to still do our thing, somebody still put the voodoo out there, I still grow my beard, and somebody still wear their lucky socks. And Darreck, whatever you're doing, continues to do it, because we've been winning.
Will do.
You probably like, man, this guy crazy. I don't believe in that stuff.
Nah. Everyone's got their ritual.
Oh yeah, man. Whatever ritual everybody was doing, we need to continue to do it. You know.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. So, Darreck, where can they find you at?
You can find me and a lot of other people, including some of your work, at the DallasProspect.com. That's singular, so prospect.com. We're on Twitter as well, at Dallas Prospect. It's a great amalgamation of sports and pop culture content. So our eye is focused towards Dallas sports. So you'll get Cowboys, Mavericks, Rangers, a little bit of Stars, college football, Big 12 conference in particular. I think obviously you got OU coming up for the college football playoff. So college football is still pretty hot commodity right now on the site. And then on the pop culture side, you'll get things like gaming and film reviews and all that. So a lot of great content. Always looking for contributors. And that's pretty much it. DallasProspect.com or the DallasProspect.com.
The DallasProspect.com. What a good name too as well. Well, that's been all our time, guys. I really thank everybody for tuning in and watching the show. Don't forget to go to that website, check out the page, and also check out the Facebook and the Twitter handle too as well, The Dallas Prospect, and get all of the good content. Also, he got a guy, RJ, what's his last name?
RJ Young.
RJ Young. If you're a big Sooner guy, Oakland, Oklahoma, you guys get a chance to take a look at his content too as well. Very sharp, very thorough type of guy, very passionate too as well about his team. So, I mean, hey, it's all good over here. I need to learn a little bit more with the Sooners too as well to see Baker Mayfield. I really like that kid. Got strong arm, small, short in frame a little bit, but this guy can get the ball to where it needs to be at. He got his rocket arm. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. I know you got to go check out Star Wars, and that's going on tonight.
Got a film review.
Review. So you guys don't forget to. Is it going to be on the website?
Oh yeah, I'm going to be doing a piece for Star Wars Episode 8.
Oh yeah, so I can't wait to read up on that. Hey, I'm a Trekkie guy.
Yeah, we got all science fiction pop culture covered.
Yes, indeed. So hey guys, we out. Salute. Appreciate you guys for following. Don't forget to hit the like button, and see us next week, and see us throughout the week. Peace.
Peace.